welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ivan, and here with me today we got Abram and Devon. Devon, how are you doing today?
Well, this morning started off with an allergic reaction. I tried to have pancakes at work, and the pancakes ended up having pecans in it. So I had a little bit of a stressful morning, but everything worked out. And now I'm here with you guys. So how about you, Abram? How are you feeling?
Never try the work pancakes. Everybody knows that. Yeah, I'm doing well. I have had a much better morning than you. Um, no allergic reaction, so thank God. I'm glad you're here with us today. Um, yeah, it's been an uneventful day. I think yesterday was the crazy day. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Right.
I'm especially exhausted from the weekend. As you can see from my outfit right now, I'm repping some IndyCar merch. Roman Grosjean, former Formula One driver, now IndyCar driver, and then one of my favorite Danish drivers right up top. So I had a great weekend. Besides today, it was a very fun, eventful weekend at Laguna Seca in Monterey Bay.
Also, a big day for Denmark. They qualified to the next round of the Euro Championship where they will face Germany. So that's cool. It's
Oh
been a
boy.
pretty good day for me as well. Thankfully, the Netherlands Austria game redeemed this day of soccer as a whole because otherwise, it hasn't been too much for neutrals to cheer about. But the main thing we're going to talk about today is the decision that was made yesterday. We're recording on Tuesday, June 25th. So yesterday, Monday, June 24th, the San Jose Earthquakes announced that Luchi Gonzalez was let go. Uh, they have parted ways with him, and assistant coach Ian Russell has been named the interim head coach. So, what are your initial thoughts on this? We'll start with Abram.
My initial thoughts are I believe it was time. I think that I love Lucia as a person. I'm really gonna miss him, to be honest. The press conferences, countless press conferences, where he came in and defended his players and his staff. He was a really cool person. I loved how patient and honest he was with us. Very vulnerable. Um, it really showed us a lot of compassion. Um, but none of that matters if it's not translating to on-field success. And at the end of the day, whether or not I like the guy, I want to win games. If I could be his friend on Facebook, that would be great. But unfortunately, we have to let him go, and we're moving on. We're moving on to a new coach, Ian Russell, who has a pretty good pedigree so far. I believe it's pretty early in his coaching career, so there's a lot left to be seen, I think. So I'm not really sure how to feel, but I definitely think that we've made the correct steps to start moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Devin, how about you?
I'd like to build off of what Abram said in terms of Ian Russell. I think the worst position that he faced in USL as he was coaching Reno was, I think, fifth position. That's pretty high. In terms of overall USL success, that's incredibly high. His overall goal differential is plus 70 in over that 4 years' time. I think there's no one better in the current staff lineup than Ian Russell for this job. It'd be really exciting to see how it translates from USL to MLS. MLS is a different character, a different breed of soccer than USL is. USL seems to be more physically challenging and more demanding in terms of the endurance race, whereas MLS is more strategic, um, physical, strength in terms of strength. Um, he's got I think he's got a lot ahead of him. But it's a great team to start off your MLS career with in the San Jose Earthquakes because you got nothing left to lose in the rest of the season.
Yep. So this is a very interesting time to make this change. I think that it's not just the 6-2 loss. I think that it makes the most natural sense to make that change. But in order to make a change like that, there had to be a lot of other causes and effects that transpired before it. And I feel like the root of what has gone wrong with this season started with that U.S. Open Cup loss to the Sacramento Republic. It's just simply something that should not happen where you're up 3-2 at the start of the second half of extra time. Then you can see 2 goals right away once play resumes. And the main priority is not the U.S. Open Cup. It is a strong campaign in Major League Soccer, obviously. So maybe that was a little bit brushed under the rug in terms of, okay, it sucks that once again we've lost a U.S. Open Cup match to USL opposition, but we move forward nonetheless. But since then, the Quakes just haven't been the same. Prior to that, they were showing really good form, especially in that month of May where they were winning games against LAFC at Levi Stadium. They won their previous Open Cup match against Oakland Roots, and they even came from behind to beat the Colorado Rapids 3-2. And now it's the opposite problems. You look at the Portland Timbers game, that was marred with bad refereeing, so okay. And then losing to Orlando City at the last minute, the collapses against New York City and FC Cincinnati, and then Portland Timbers game, well, it wasn't as bad in comparison. It was still not a great performance, and then, of course, LAFC 6-2. So it can't. We've been in agreement during these podcasts where we've covered these games that it's not just the manager. Some blame has to be attributed, but a lot of it comes down to a lot of other factors, including poor performances by players, certain players not being available due to injuries, and then depth not stepping up. What are some other aspects you feel like have contributed to us getting to this point, Abram?
Well, you mentioned the late goals that we've been conceding pretty much in every game this season, and you say it as if it's like something that like almost like an injury thing that can't be helped. But I think at this point it's kind of a feature of this team. Like it's what we do. It's how we're built. I don't think that the team really has a great mentality right now, and I think that's the main thing that Ian Russell is going to have to tackle in order to make any sort of change. Because if the players don't believe they can win, then they can't. Um, and yeah, there's not much to say because I don't know much about Ian Russell. Um, I did hear a lot of breakdown of his tactics on the Quakes Epicenter Aftershock when they covered the departure of Luchi. So if you want like a more in-depth breakdown, make sure to check them out. But I don't really have any predictions.
I think the biggest thing that Ian Russell might do differently than Luchi Gonzalez is because Ian Russell's been a part of the organization a lot longer than Luchi Gonzalez has. Spent many years as an assistant coach under many different regimes and situations here. So that would be a benefit to players that have been in the San Jose Earthquakes uh, set up for longer to maybe see some more minutes. But at the same time, you go down that list. Is Ian Russell really going to bank his chance at perhaps securing a permanent coach on let's play Tommy Thompson more? Because for all the things that we joke, and we love Tommy Thompson, maybe not as much as Saz, but we still do, that I feel like the best players have been playing as much as possible. I feel like as far as personnel choices, Luchi Gonzalez has been playing the best players, at least on paper. I guess one thing you can mark against him is that maybe some players have more wiggle room for poor performances than others. And that could be also down to depth. If you're not that convinced that the next player down from Carlos Grezzo, whether you go with Alfredo Morales or even deeper to Michael Baldissimo, is able to replace Carlos Grezzo in the starting lineup for a few games while Grezzo tries to figure out why he's not playing as well, then that's not great either. You're not getting this team prepared enough. That would be one school of thought. Devon, do you have any other thoughts of things that might have went wrong?
It's a significant amount of factors. I think, the biggest issue for me was the fact that Luchi likes to, bunker down, at least in the first season. He enjoyed to bunker down after like the 50th, 60th minute. And that's around the time when, parking the bus was inevitable in 2023. In 2024, it seems like those are the minutes where we started to break down because we kept pushing forward. We kept trying to score more goals, as Luchi put it. He wanted to kill teams in the second half of games, and it's that transition. I'm not sure where the issue was exactly, but it's around that same time that we're used to bunkering down in 2023, where in 2024 we've found the significant issues and could not seem to solve it in the first 18 games.
Yeah, and just thinking back to the end of the 2023 season, the last game we won in that season was in September 16th. We beat Real Salt Lake 2-1 at home. And then the following games after that, we expected to lose in Portland, especially being a midweek game. So, okay. But then we ended the season with 4 draws. At home to Nashville, on the road to Minnesota, in Frisco, Texas, drawing against FC Dallas, and at home to Austin. And they were all 1-1 score lines. It felt like we were doing the same thing over and over again. And I think there's a lot of Quakes fans that are probably begging, it's like, oh, I'd love to go back to the 1-1 days, because compared to what's happened lately, it's been even worse. And then, of course, the wild card game against Sporting Kansas City ended in a draw, and then they won on penalties. So maybe there has been a bit of an overcorrection. It's like, okay, we've been bunkering down, we've not been losing, but the way we're playing, we're not winning either. So we have to be more aggressive, we have to be more inventive, we have to play out the back more, we have to take these risks, we have to be more committed to the attack, and then that's thrown off the balance of that team. So there may be that going for it as well. And I think it just continues this really bad pattern that San Jose Earthquakes can't seem to break, no matter how many teams are allowed to be in the playoffs, that it's pretty much all but sealed that we're not going to the playoffs again this year. So therefore, once again, we go another pair of seasons where we don't make 2 playoff appearances in a row, which really is a bare minimum standard for a team that's trying to establish itself as a contender in MLS, at least a serious team. Especially when you've seen so many other teams in the past 5 years, 10 years that have bounced back and gone on to win a Supporters Shield, make a conference final appearance, maybe even win an MLS Cup. So it is frustrating. And I think we could also look into, some of the players and where things are at right now. I think with the goalkeeper position, it's really murky. Until Daniel comes back from injury, we don't know when that's going to happen. It's going to be an arms race between the remaining healthy goalkeepers to see who's going to get the opportunity and who's going to be able to get not even a clean sheet, but get, maybe, concede 1 goal, maybe we get a tie. But what kind of changes do you think will be made this window? Because I believe they're not looking to make wholesale changes this summer, and they may not even be looking for a center back right away. They might be looking for a center midfield. But what are some changes you expect? What are some changes you'd like to see, Abram?
Yeah, I mean, that's confirmed. Leach, the guy who's in charge of those things, told us that he wasn't looking for another center back. I think that's a mistake.
Mistake.
I think it's a mistake just because we are down a very good center back. So logically you would buy another one. I think that it's imperative that we shore up the 6. That's the biggest hole right now. It feels like every time we seal a position up and put like a patch in it, like we had a Cade Cowell-sized hole at the beginning of the season. We got Pellegrino. I think he's been better than Cade Cowell. He hasn't been amazing. He's our top scorer, but he's still left a lot to be desired. But Grezzo has been way below par. He is our worst performing center defensive mid in the team, behind Yule, behind what's his name, Morales. No, Bellissimo hasn't played. I don't think this year in MLS. I could be wrong on that. Either way, Grezzo. You want much, much, much more than that from your DP, but we're stuck with him, So we're gonna have to find a a level below DP that is going to help us be more consistent. And I don't have the faith that we can pull that off in the time frame that we're given at this point of the season, because most teams who have a center mid that they really want aren't going to let them go in the middle of the season. Um, so it's really rough, but that's what they're looking for. I hope that they find someone um, that could bring us success, because we don't need that much. This team has the quality to be a mid-table MLS squad, and I truly believe that. But we're performing terribly. Daniel, his return is on the horizon, so I don't think the goalkeeper position is like dire. I think that we need to shore up that midfield, because it's not looking great. We get beat through the center all the time, and it's really showing, with where we are in the league. I think that's the main issue, and I would love to see us bring a solid, option there. It doesn't have to be a superstar, just someone who's solid.
In the short term, going to this game against the Galaxy in Stanford, would you start Jackson again, or do you think, okay, we've seen enough Yarborough or Ochoa?
I thought that you meant like Jackson Newell. I was like, do we have another choice? Is Grezzo back yet? But no, we call him JJ in the Discord just to stop any confusion. Um, I start Yarborough, in my opinion. I think that like it's less scary. I think Ian will have more trust in Yarborough. Um, I like Jackson. I think that he's done well with the town. He did well against Sacramento, but then you kind of, with those things being said, you create a narrative of, okay, well, maybe he can only play against lower level teams, um, you know, and he hasn't disproven that, because his first game he made one mistake, and one where I feel like he should have saved it. I can't blame it on him 100%, but you have your hand on the ball basically. You can't let it get past you, man. Um, so I'm not comfortable blaming that goal on him, the second goal. But then he got 5 goals scored on him the next game, or six. Was it six? Yeah, six. So he hasn't painted himself in the best light. Not that Yarbrough has been a superstar, but he's been semi-consistent. So I don't see why we don't revert to Yarbrough if Daniel still isn't available.
Right. So you mentioned the center backs, and I agree that all those reasons are why I was dumbfounded when Leach was thinking, no, we're good with center backs, because I'm not even looking that far into some options here. Look at former Quakes center back Francisco Calvo. He just finished, contributing to a 0-0 draw that Costa Rica had with Brazil. He's playing for FC Juarez in Liga MX. So something like that, or even, if you're looking at a current MLS player, Carlos Harvey. I know he's from former Galaxy, but he is a Panama national team player, and he's not an out-and-out starter for Minnesota United. Just try something new. You're not going to get the big upgrades in the middle of the season, most likely, if you're looking at those type of domestic options. For bringing in players abroad, like from Europe, you're looking at players who are like out of contract or will be out of contract next summer. I would have to dig a little bit deeper into that, but at the same time, you wonder how much of that is going to be worth it, considering San Jose Earthquake's usual activity during transfer windows in the past few seasons. But yeah, when I try to think about options for a defensive midfielder, I'm looking around at other teams like Austin. Like, they figured it out with Alexander Ring. The Portland Timbers have been able to rely on Diego Chara for 13 years. It's like, and this used to be, a position of strength. Granted, Judson wasn't the highest ceiling player, but at the time, he did his job very well. And he wasn't the biggest guy either. He was just so defensively sound, very smart on the ball, very decisive with his interventions. So, yeah, we just haven't been able to replace him. Who would have thought not replacing Judson would be the downfall right now? And that's kind of yet another problem that the Quakes find themselves in. Looking at some of these big guys as well, players like Christian Espinoza, Hernan Lopez, we agree that they don't deserve too much blame because they've done everything they could. I think within reason, they've contributed as much as possible. And that also goes for Rodriguez. He's the one defender that, granted, when the defense has been this bad, no defender looks great. But Rodriguez himself, as an individual, he's still doing as well as he could as well under these circumstances.
He's doing everything. He's scoring
Yeah.
and defending.
Yeah, he scored, yes. Like, he provided 1 or 2 goals against LAFC then. And then, but yeah, we still haven't had consistency from Jeremy Obobasi. And I think the 2 biggest signings that have proven not to work out as of now are on that left side, Vitor Costa and Amal Pellegrino. What are your thoughts on them? And if it could get to the point where, like, it could be, we try to replace them next season, or do we think that there's still a chance that they can figure things out? Devon?
It's difficult knowing the expectation of Russell's formation coming up to know exactly where Pellegrino's going to fit in. There was conversation earlier about, Pellegrino, whether he may or may not fit the left mid role, or whether he's a good fit as a secondary striker alongside Jeremy Obobasi, or if it's Benji Kikanovic along Obobasi, or Judd, or Espinoza, and where do those guys play? But specifically to Pellegrino, I'm not really sure exactly what his new role is under Ian Russell. I hope that it is another 9 position right next to Jeremy Obobasi. Having those 2 up top, if Jeremy is still one of those players that likes to come back as a false 9, and Pele can work really well among that and get in behind the lines or find the gaps that Jeremy Obobasi is creating by sitting a little deeper, I think that would work perfectly with Ian Russell's tactics as a 4-4-2 diamond, and then have Benji Kikanovic on the left side. So I'm not really sure. There's a lot of confliction. But one of the players that kind of stands out to me is Christian Espinoza. He's one of the most versatile guys. I think in that 3-5-2 that Luchi used to play back last year when we played LAFC and Seattle, he was a great right mid. He was a great right mid for the team, and I can totally see he and Acapo, when he comes back, working well together along that right side.
Right. And I think that Jackson Yule will probably remain captain for the season. I think that in terms of the non-playing aspects, in terms of the leadership aspects, getting along with everybody, being a rallying force, I think that Jackson Yule is fine as the captain for the time being, but I do feel like if the season continues for the remainder as it has been the last month, maybe he's not the guy to be wearing that armband. I think that might be something that will be changing as well, but we'll see.
Yeah. Something that Crystal reiterated in the Quakes Epicenter Patreon chat is he is a co-captain, Jackson Yule. So he's not the main captain, apparently, which I somewhat disagree with because, as a co-captain, you're kind of like that secondary guy. So, for example, it's Christian Espinoza and Jackson Yule as 2 co-captains. But when both of them are on the field, it's always Jackson Yule wearing the armband. So it's not like it interchanges between one or the other. It's always Jackson Yule. So Jackson Yule, in the team's eyes, is the bigger captain than Christian Espinoza, which I think Christian Espinoza should be the main captain. He shows a lot of heart. He's one of the team leaders. He's always the difference maker on the team. He shows everything that you need in a captain, except maybe the vocalization and dictation that you would see in like a goalkeeper and telling players where to go and this and that. I haven't seen too much of that in Christian Espinoza, but at the same time, I haven't seen that in Jackson Yule either. And I think that's one of the reasons why Chris Leach is looking to the summer transfer window to get a new center mid, maybe to replace Jackson Yule, or maybe Jackson Yule's being hunted by another team within MLS or another league or something like that. It'd be nice to see Yule move on and us replace him right away. But either way, he's looking for a center mid. Chris Leach, and I think Jackson Ewell is going to be replaced by someone. Not sure who, not sure how, but it looks like something's coming his way.
Another nominee for captain. He won a lot of hearts with his press conference. Benji Kikanovic. I don't think I've ever heard a Sounds Earthquakes player say shit in a post game press conference.
Not the
And
first time he said it either. He said it before.
He
yeah,
said it 12
It's
times
been a
in the
few
same
times.
day.
right. He's done it a few times. Maybe before then, you might have to go as far back as Steven Lenhart. Or maybe Chris Wondolowski said it in a very joyous way at one point. It's like, this is fun as shit when he's scoring so many goals. But what were your thoughts, Devon, when you saw that clip of Benji?
I think Benji's a hero for that. I'm not gonna lie. I think he won a lot of hearts within the team, within the squad. Um, he's right. No matter what he says, like he's right. The team is shit. The form is shit. Everything is gone to shit. Um, and I thought, both of the interviews between Benji and Luchi was a statement that something was coming that week. Luchi Gonzalez not taking questions from the media, and only just releasing a certain statement, and then Benji Kikanovic coming out with an absolute gunfire to the media. I think in my perspective, I'm definitely going to put Benji on a shirt just for those comments alone.
Yeah, I think if San Jose Earthquakes marketing team wants to salvage this season in some way, shape, or form, make sure that from every home game from now on, there is Kikanovic jerseys because people will buy them. Even if it's a shirt, similar types of apparel, make sure Kikanovic is on the name of some of those shirts and your sales will go up. Because, not going to lie, when I was walking around at halftime during the Portland game, I was surprised to see that many people buying merchandise after what you've seen in that half in the last few games. Maybe, I know there were some people taking their kids and stuff, and of course, kids don't care what the results is like. Okay, this team is cool. I want that shirt. But, still, it's like this is an interesting vibe here. I feel like it's just been a malaise of, well, this is what we are right now. We just got to deal with it. But it really is unacceptable for this to go on much longer. But I still feel in the same position as I did pre and post Luchi in terms of I look at the schedule. You cannot pay me to tell you when the next win is going to be. We're almost done with June, so I'll include July in this exercise. So, obviously, we have the LA Galaxy game against Stanford. In Stanford. Then midweek, we go to St. Louis. And then we play again Monday, which is a weird time. Monday, July 8th, 1 p.m. is the current listed time. It feels very weird. Against the Chicago Fire at PayPal Park. And that begins a bit of a homestand where we, Saturday, July 18th, Spartan Kansas City. Then another Wednesday game, Houston Dynamo. And then we close out July with Minnesota United before we go into the League's Cup. We got to win a game before League's Cup, especially if you want there to be at least a 5% Earthquakes fan contingent in that game against Chivas, like Guadalajara. So I think the default answer might be just Chicago because after a bit of a, run of form that they had earlier in June, they started to tail off a bit. Maybe seeing Shaqiri score for Switzerland took the wind out of their sails. It's like, this guy, he never does it for us, so screw it, we're going to lose. But, yeah, I think there's no easy games because to everyone else, we are the easy game. Any other game that we see maybe a semblance of hope of a point, maybe, Abram?
I mean, I don't know. So right now you can quote me, but I am kind of a skeptic on Russell. I don't think that it's his fault. I think with a normal team, I think he would do just fine. But this is not a normal team. This is a wooden spoon contending team. We might have the quality to be a mid-table team, and that's what we're aiming for. But I don't really see us not getting the title of most scored on MLS club. we have to concede less than 20 for the rest of the season. That's not a lot. That's not a lot of leeway. I don't know. I couldn't tell you any of those games. I think only Chicago is a game where I feel positive about. It can go
Mhm.
either way. Obviously, it can go any way. We can win any game. Um, but I can't sit here and in good faith tell you that I think that we're gonna do anything special. I think it would take a miracle worker to get us to a salvageable place, and I don't think that if Russell was that miracle worker, I don't think he would be sitting on our bench as our assistant coach. And also, you have to consider that the team already is highly influenced by Russell. He is an assistant coach, and he already had a huge influence on how the team played. Luchi, used his advice a lot as it is. So I'm not saying that in no way am I saying that what we have produced is Russell's fault. That's totally unfair. But I don't think that we're looking at like a meteoric rise following the departure of Lucci. Um, but yeah, like I said, quote me on that, and
Mhm.
then I'll do another Skayan-esque apology at the end of the season if I'm wrong.
I think going back to that though, from what I remember hearing and reading in our Discord was that Russell was more of the scout for the team. He was more of the guy who scouted the opposition team. So it's not like he had too much of a tactical influence, that Lucci would listen to. He was more of the guy that told Lucci what these players or teams were doing in terms of their tactics. But I'm not sure how much influence he had with the overall tactics on our side.
His tactics, especially early on, will be more damage control, which means he's going to be a lot more conservative and reliant on counterattack and set pieces rather than trying to be as dynamic, which could constrict players like Espinoza and Lopez that want to express themselves. Specifically looking at our very next opponents, LA Galaxy, even with two injuries right now that they're dealing with that are important, Gaston Brugman and Ricky Puig, uh, their lineup is still so much better right now. It sucks to say, but their goalkeeper is an MLS Cup winning goalkeeper in McCarthy. They have a solid right back in Yamane. Their center back pairing of Maya Yoshida and Martin Caceres are very experienced in some of the best leagues in Europe. And they also have Jalen Neal, sorry, that is really good too, that they could call upon as well. And then their front four right now of Fagundes, Gabriel Peck, Jovelich, and the guy who destroyed us in the opener, Joseph Pinkstill, that's going to cause some problems. I think that more than likely that Galaxy at least put four past us in Stanford on Saturday. However, in the 1% chance somehow this Galaxy team doesn't beat us, that would be a win. I will be a very annoying Quakes fan to any Galaxy fans I know because that's what we do. Even at our lowest, if we somehow scratch a result against the Galaxy, I don't care if it's at home, then you have to look at yourself and be like, wow, we really aren't as good as we thought we were. We're not even the best team in LA still. That's the reality that they'll have to face themselves with. That's about as positive as I can be, but even still, the Stanford game, fortunately, I can't make it this year, is always a great opportunity, always a fun time. And what is something that you look forward to most when it comes to the Stanford game, Devon?
I think I look forward to most. I'm not sure.
Do you
I
tailgate?
don't. I don't tailgate too much. Last year I was with Goal Sided and we had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of fun. Although I drank too much, and I couldn't remember 3 quarters of the game. I think we had a halftime meetup, me, Abram, and a couple other friends, and I couldn't tell you who I met up with and who
No,
I even saw. What
no, we
happened?
we did have a meetup, but Devin was not there. His body was there, but
My
Devin
body
was
was
not.
there, but my soul was in a different continent. It might be the same again this weekend. So we'll see. Watching the Quake sober at Stanford is probably not the ideal situation.
The last time at the Stanford game, I remember just the pissed expression of Greg Vanny when he walked out of that game, not only not winning, but he was especially mad at that controversial Jackson Ewell call. So I really do hope that you'll get an opportunity, Abram. You could potentially be at both press conferences to see, if somehow we pull off a draw or something, what excuses he'll have.
Didn't Yule get a red card for
He
tackling
got
from
yellow.
behind? You got a
He got
yellow?
yellow, but Vanny wanted a red.
Okay. I was like, I remember that Yule at some point last season got a red card for tackling from behind. So I thought that was that situation. So I was like, what more do you want? Do you want him to execute him? But no, I mean, I've never been to a opposing team press conference. This will be my first time as media at Stanford. So I'm looking forward to that. But if I have the opportunity, then that would be interesting. But I don't know if I want to spend more time on Greg Vanny rather than Ian Russell, who will be doing his first press conference, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, obviously the priority is always we go to the Quakes
Yeah.
press conferences, but in the rare instance where they don't overlap, such as in the Stanford game, which usually they do make it a point because they know that this is the biggest game on the calendar, especially for the Earthquakes, sometimes for the Galaxy, but maybe not this season, that they do want to stagger it because there is a lot of neutral reporters that do come to the Stanford game.
Mm.
But I honestly do recommend it. If anyone's watching this and ever gets the opportunity to be a press pass holder for an MLS team, a USL team, whatever the case may be, you do gain a lot of insight and you get two sides of the story from attending the other side's press conference. And every game of soccer and the season as a whole is a story. So you want to piece that together as much as possible. But it will be a big game, and maybe that's what they were gambling on. Maybe they wanted a new manager bounce, new ideas, a fresh start ahead of this game. And I think that's what they're hoping for. This is a roll of the dice. If you can perform well and get a good result against LA Galaxy, you will at least have some semblance of passionate support beyond the supporters group that is still there for the remaining games of the season. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where the Galaxy, prior to the firing, came had a training routine. We'll just say that a training routine in preparation for Luchi's tactics and everything that's associated with Luchi's version of the Quakes. Now they have to, they're all confused. They're all jumbled up in trying to decipher what Ian Russell's going to do against the LA Galaxy. And now they're probably, they're going to have to switch it up in their training. So, the Earthquakes can prepare for the Galaxy because they have everything the same this season, the same manager, same players, except without Ricky Pooch, which is beneficial to the Earthquakes.
Super beneficial.
So the Earthquakes, the Earthquakes are basically, I don't want to say at an advantage. I don't want to say at an advantage at all because of our current record and our mentality right now. But technically we do in terms of strategy and preparation for the game. So
we have a wild card.
That's really what I'm looking forward to is the unexpected possibility of the range of variations of scoreline that could commence during this Cali Clasico. So this, despite having lost however many of the last games, this is still going to be quite an interesting matchup between the Quakes and Galaxy.
Yeah.
Specifically because of the manager.
If you don't mind, I'd like to follow up on that. I am also excited. I know I've been skeptic of Ian Russell of this podcast, but I am excited to see the new ideas, the fresh ideas that he brings to this team. If I was Leach, I would make the same decision. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't use him before. We chose Covello. Obviously, he is busy with the Olympics right now. But
Hmm.
if I was Leach, I would have made the same choice. I would have gotten rid of Lucci and brought in Ian Russell. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to see what he could do. We do definitely have a wild card. That's a great point from Devon. Um, and so we don't know what to expect from this match, and that's all the more reason to go out and watch.
All right. Uh, last thing I want to talk about is I think we can expect at least a goal to be scored. Even if we're not expecting a win, we can expect that. And my two nominees for most likely goal scorers are Benji Kikanovic, because he's all fired up, and it just writes itself. Preston Judd. Who are you manifesting if you could pick maybe one or two players to get on the score sheet for this one? Devin?
Number one, Hernan Lopez Munoz.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be the top guy, getting almost 8 point plus every single game he's played so far. Like this guy is incredible, and I think he can do it again versus the Galaxy. Considering we haven't played the Galaxy with Hernan Lopez yet, so I think he can do damage. And then number two, I might have to say Benji Kikanovic as well. He did score in the Clasico last time as he got subbed on, in like the 60 something. I don't know what minute. I can't think of it right now, but he did score in the second half. And he is a big difference maker as a substitute, which is what I think he will be used as. So Benji Kikanovic will be that number two potential goal scorer. Um, and then, considering anyone in the back line, I think they've scored about 40 to 50% of our goals, whether it came from Bruno Costa, Victor Costa, uh, Rodriguez, Paul Marie, any one of those guys who are sitting along the back line. They've done a great work for us, and I think they can prove that again in the Clasico.
Abram?
I think you guys brought up some great points. One thing that I know about Galaxy, if I can play Ian Russell's role and scout out the opposition for a second, um, what I understand is that they like to play with a high line, but their defenders don't like playing high line because they're old. Not to be rude, but Yoshida and Caceres are not the youngest players in the league, and so Lopez and Pellegrino have been able to link up and find each other in counterattacks. And I think that is going to be a good way to score if we can figure that out. So for me, Pellegrino is due a goal. He's been missing, but we know that he has the quality to score. So eventually he's going to have to find the back of the net again. I think that Benji Kanovic, if he were to come on or start, however it is, he has the pace to get behind. I'm really counting on those counterattacks. But I think that Lopez is going to be key to this game. He always is. Um, but I think that particularly this Galaxy team is going to find a lot of success in those pockets and finding space to create chances for his teammates. Um, but other than that, I think that I like Devon's take on the defenders scoring off of a set piece. I think Espinosa has kind of improved on corners and wide set pieces. I think that he still misses some, but if we're gonna have those chances in behind, then if we don't score those, it's gonna lead to a lot of corners, right? If the keeper saves it, whatever, we're gonna have a lot of corners if we are successful on the counter attack, and so that's gonna lead to a lot of corners, and that's gonna lead to us whipping the ball in a lot more, and that's gonna be conducive to our defenders scoring, and I would love that. I think Beeson needs a boost. I would love to see Beeson score. We know that he's one to attempt bicycle kicks, travelas, and stuff like that. Um, I would really love to see it. I don't think it's going to happen. But
The Pro
Rodriguez
Clubs
is
reference.
sorry. A pro club
It's a
reference.
Pro Clubs reference.
No, but he does it in real life. We've seen him do bicycle kicks and stuff like that in real life, as well as in pro clubs. Um, but no, Rodriguez I think is he's red hot right now. So I'm hoping he'll get another goal as well.
All right. Well, I think that it is fun to think about the goals. That's why we talked about that. Everything does start with the defense, though. I think that it's been historically bad defensive efforts so far, and I want them to take this game personally, not only because this is a rivalry, but because Joseph Painstill in particular, he kicked our ass in that game. and the entire Galaxy game did. So you got to be more aggressive, you stand your ground, and hopefully this is going to be a turning of the tide, at least for the moment. This is the beginning of a new chapter in this season, and we're going to be there to see what happens. And we'll, of course, be talking about it when we come back on the Tectonic Takes podcast. That's all for today, though. Thank you all for listening. Go Quakes!
Go
Go
Quakes.
Quakes.